The people of these colonies are most enamoured by broadsides and gazettes, and in their ignorance only read those quartos that tell them whereof they wish to hear. Some go to Mr. Murdoch's printing shop, others to Mr. Turner's. They agree on nothing, yea, not even the colour of the sky. Yet I ask they, if Satan's kingdom be divided against itself, how can it stand? I am the Witchfinder General of the Colony of Massachusetts Bay. Today I shall be preaching against the lying currents and the sinful printers who publish them, together with an argument that such printers do bear false witness, with the intent to abuse and deceive the folk of these colonies. In the first particular, let us learn their opinion of the most pressing issue of the day.
You know, I call it a witch hunt, and it is a witch hunt. How long has this witch hunt gone on?
This is a pure and simple witch hunt.
This whole witch hunt that's going on.
Witch hunt. President Trump's frequent and favorite nickname for the Mueller investigations, now upsetting actual witches. Seriously. Joining me now, our go-to witch who put a hex on Judge Kavanaugh after his Supreme Court confirmation. Did the hex work?
Yeah, I feel that it did.
How can you tell?
Well, really, it was about having people exposed for what we believe is corruption. And so the day after we did it, there was the memo leak about the Justice Department specifically targeting trans people. And that was something that really was like a rallying call to arms for people on our side of things.
Oh, so you think the hex caused the transgender situation?
Well, listen, I've been in many transgender situations, and I don't know if hexes cause all of them.
Very good.
Very good. Either this man, this Mr. Waters, is a flat-pated fool, or else he is in league with the devil himself. The which hath offered confession. The only course axiom to take is to bring him forthwith to the magistrates assembled in the court in the shire in which he dwells. And yet this perfumed prink Waters doth smile and laugh as though the machinations of the devil are but mere fancy. He shall not be smiling anon when the witch's familiars visit his dwelling in the dead of night. He shall not be laughing when imps with names no mortal can invent, such as Elemancer, Poywocket, Peck in the Crown, Grizzle, Greatagut and the like, come to him in the form of fat dogs without legs, or small children without heads, to suckle the good blood from his body. Perchance he is one of those who would set about to prove that there are no witches. Yet the contrary tenet is undeniable. We know this from the laws that God himself made against them. If there were no witches, what need these laws? We know it too from the history of the Bible, which nameth to contain certain witches, such as the sorcerers of Egypt, those of Babylon and Persia, those of the Philistines, and those of the nations driven out before the Israelites. So we read of Balaam, of Jezebel, of Manasses, of Simon Magus, and of Elimas. All of this should be false if there are no witches.
One of his comments is not sitting well with some here in Massachusetts. The president wrote, quote, "More due process was afforded those accused in the Salem witch trials." Well, the mayor of Salem, who is a Democrat, was quick to respond, saying comparing the impeachment proceedings to those false trials centuries ago is a dangerous move.
To see both the president and his supporters using the witch trials, it's offensive to the descendants, those victims, that their legacy is being twisted in this way.
What is this devilry? Those so-called victims of the trials at Salem were diabolical malefactors, put to instant death only after lawful trial and conviction. One would think that all the rules of understanding human affairs were at an end, if after so many voluntary, harmonious confessions, made by intelligent persons of all ages in sundry towns at several times, we must not believe that the charges of witchcraft were true, and that the court judged aright. By their own admissions, these witches sent their confederate spirits to do all sorts of mischief amongst their neighbours. Yea, and their object, as they conspired at prodigious witch-matins, was nothing less than to concert and consult the methods of rooting out the Christian religion in New England. There was not a greater uproar amongst the Ephesians as when the gospel was first brought amongst them. Likewise, the devil was exceedingly disturbed when he perceived our fathers upon these shores, accomplishing the promise of old made unto our beloved Jesu, that he should have the utmost parts of the earth for his possession. Thus irritated, the devil attempted to overturn this poor plantation. I believe that there never were more satanical devices used for the unsettling of any people under the sun and what hath lately been employed in Salem for the extirpation of the vine which God hath here planted.
Amanda, thank you for coming on tonight. I just had a panic communication in the commercial break with one of my producers, Alex, who said, be nice to her. I don't want to spell on me. So I hope that you'll pull back on your powers and spare our staff. What does this mean exactly, that you cast a binding spell on the president?
Binding spells are like any other spell, so they're a symbolic action used to harness the powers of the imagination and achieve a tangible result eventually.
The witch lies, as all witches do, and the printer commits a grave sin by publishing her blasphemous nonsense. The power of the imagination, this is nonsense. The only power at hand is that of the devil, and though witches are loth to admit it, his wicked instruments are ne'er employed without the consent of God Almighty, whose dominion over nature is absolute. There are three kinds of folk whom God will permit to be tempted by witchcraft. The wicked, to be punished in like measure for their horrible sins. The godly, who are sleeping in any great sins, infirmities, or weaknesses of faith, to waken them the faster by such an uncouth form. And in some of the best, whom God will test before the world, as he did with Job. We might wonder what kind this witch be, but the methods whereof she came into the serpent's service matters not. God's commandment demands she be put to instant death. Let no misgivings bait thy resolve, for such nonsense of mercy are sent by the devil, to better preserve the lives of his earthly servants.
Are you a witch?
I'm a practicing witch. That's how I make my living, yes. There's a lot to be offended by Donald Trump, and I think his use of the term witch hunt is very low on that list of priorities for most witches, but nevertheless, it does demonstrate his ignorance as usual.
If there be one thing that the Gazettes write more of than witches, it is the royal governor of these colonies, a fat Scotchman named Donald Trump. Though a merchant in New York, a city which all know to be a popish pigsty, he is surely a godly man, for he hath oft spake against the Gazettes and the printers who publish them.
When you report fake news, when you report fake news, which CNN does a lot, you are the enemy of the people. Go ahead.
He hath also made enemies of the Indians, Satan's own children, who hath brought so much woe and desolation to these colonies.
Pocahontas? Pocahontas? Well, no, look, she is it offensive? You tell me. Oh, really? Oh, I'm sorry about that.
Such a man, detested as he is by heathens and witches alike, must be a good Christian, devoted to the Lord's commandments. Oh, I would fain study the Bible with Mr. Trump. I warrant he knows it by heart.
I'm wondering what one or two of your most favored Bible verses are, and why.
I wouldn't want to get into it because to me that's very personal. You know, when I talk about the Bible, it's very personal, so I don't want to get into verses. I don't want to get into...
There's no verse that means a lot to you that you think about or cite?
The Bible means a lot to me, but I don't want to get into specifics.
Even to cite a verse that you like?
No, I don't want to do that.
You're an Old Testament guy or a New Testament guy?
Probably equal.
'Tis square. But he is an old man. Perchance his memory is not what it was.
Proverbs, the chapter, never bend to envy. I've had that thing all of my life where people are bending to envy.
That is not in the Bible.
Why do I have to, repent? Why do I have to ask for forgiveness if you're not making mistakes? When we go in church and when I drink my little wine, which is about the only wine I drink, and have my little cracker, I guess that's a form of asking for forgiveness.
No. This cannot be.
When you're starved, they let you do it. You can do anything.
Whatever you want.
Grab him by the pussy. You can do anything.
Adultery, fornication, a ravening wolf in sheep's clothing. Do not be fooled by this man's commendable hatred of Indians, heathens, sodomites, and the like. He is a liar, a lustful, prideful imp, a false Christian. I address thee directly, Donald Trump. Thou art a wretched sinner, utterly unworthy of God's love. A fountain of pollution is deep within thy nature, and thou livest as a winter tree, unprofitable, fit only to be hewn down and burned. Stake thy life in prayer, and hope that God sees fit to show mercy on thy corrupted soul. Mark me, News from Virginia. Donald Trump hath been deposed from the governorship, but who shall succeed him?
President-elect Joe Biden will become just the second Catholic in our nation's history to serve as president.